companies wanting to operate in the US. And Ripple was kind of at the front end of that with the United States Securities Exchange Commission filing a lawsuit almost 3 years ago now, asserting that Ripple's sales of XRP had been the sale of unregistered securities. So our lawsuit win, which I think also around the same time as an important win in the U.S. courts for a lawsuit around a company called Grayscale, it really, I think, has shown that the chairman of the SEC, a gentleman named Gary Gensler, has, I think, had a failed policy of how do we regulate through enforcement. And that hasn't been effective. It hasn't worked. The courts have now moved against the SEC, and we're, I hope, entering a new age where we can actually have clear policy that is constructive in the United States. And as you said, Adrian, what the judge in our case said, XRP in and of itself is not a security. So now almost, in an unhealthy way, the only two digital assets in the United States that are there's clarity, they're not a security, is XRP and Bitcoin. And the SEC has continued to kind of, I think, muddy the waters around lots of other things. So creating that confusion, I think, actually has helped the SEC try to retain power, because one of the things I tweeted out a while ago is the idea that confusion masquerades as power. If it's clear, the SEC doesn't have authority because these aren't securities. They're the Securities Exchange Commission. So I'm super pleased about it. I think it is creating some momentum in the legislature of the United States to create that clarity. But as you know, Adrian, really well, and I think, certainly a lot of your customers and prospects know, outside the United States, there's been much more clarity. And that has allowed Ripple to grow. 88% of our hiring in Q3 was outside the United States, in places like London and Switzerland and Singapore and Dubai. And that's largely because there has been that clarity. So I'm really pleased about the case. I'm really pleased that we won on everything that matters. But I still think the U.S. is not yet in a, I guess, called constructive place in terms of what the future of crypto looks like in the United States.
That's super interesting. And one thing is that this discussion with the regulators also emphasize a lot the XRP and XRPL component of Ripple. I'll be honest with you, Brad. Until very recently, I always thought Ripple was actually everything about XRPL and XRP. I thought it was a cryptocurrency, and I didn't realize that there was all of this business, which was almost a software and financial service, regulated financial service business. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Ripple is doing beyond the distributed ledger and the cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I think it's a really important distinction that there are always, I've been in the company now 8.5 years, almost 9 years. And I think there's always been this kind of conflation and confusion between what is Ripple and what is XRP. And I think you understand well, and I think many people are starting to understand better, that XRP is an open source digital asset that anyone can participate in that ecosystem. The code is not controlled by Ripple. The validator network is not controlled by Ripple. We're clearly an interested party in that. We own a lot of XRP, and we think XRP is extremely efficient for many use cases. Not all use cases. We definitely are not maximalists in that we think that there's a place for Bitcoin. There's a place for a lot of other tokens and different use cases. But Ripple at its core is an enterprise infrastructure company focused on blockchain. We started with a use case around payments. We have now expanded beyond that. We introduced a product prior to the Medico acquisition called Liquidity Hub, focused on managing and sourcing liquidity across the digital asset ecosystem. With the Medico acquisition earlier this year, we're obviously expanding in custody. And we see ourselves expanding to other use cases focused on that infrastructure side at the enterprise level, really going after financial institutions, enterprises, and we're really pleased about where we sit there. We certainly think we have a ways to go. But I think going back to your core question, there are a lot of people who I think just didn't understand that Ripple is not XRP and XRP is not Ripple. And that's partly because, exchanges would list, XRP as Ripple. And people say, oh, I bought some Ripple. I'm like, no.
I used to say this.
Yeah. And so it's been something that we have combated for a long time, and we'll continue to do so. And just providing education about what Ripple is doing. As you said, Ripple is clearly, if not the leading enterprise infrastructure company around blockchain. We're one of them, and so we're really pleased about that momentum, and we're glad to have Medico as part of that family.
Well, speaking about Medico, so you acquired as a company Medico, and you're the sole owner today. It's obviously a very different kind of business, at least in appearance. We, and I say we because, I used to be the founder and CEO. I'm still the CEO. So Medico was focused on purely the infrastructure, selling custody mainly to the banking institutions. Obviously, Ripple is doing more than this. How do you see the two combining together and creating synergies, creating value?
So look, I think there is customer overlap in that Ripple has a broad sales force as well as existing customer base of financial institutions. Medico, as you know better than me, has tended to play at the tier 1 level. Ripple has tended to play below the tier 1 level, but I think there's clearly overlap there that has created some positive synergy. I also think as you look at where the product suite, the opportunity for financial institutions broadly is going, it doesn't stop with custody. It doesn't stop with payments. And so it's really, how do different banks, different financial institutions take advantage of a suite of products that would include custody, that could include payments, that could include other capabilities at the infrastructure kind of enterprise level. Now, better